I want to say something about what you just said. I just like, when I made like a record in 2013, which doesn't sound as good as what I would do today.
Sure, of good. Never
but this
does.
is also part of the point is that like when I was, I guess, how old was I when I made that record? About your age. I was 26 in 2013. Right. And for me, like leaving in those mistakes was like I was like, oh, I love that scratch on the guitar. Like, let's leave that in because like that's what the cool records have. They have those like amazing.
You're like, that's how it happens.
Those amazing mistakes. Yeah. And like as I developed and became more of like an engineer, became more obsessive, blah blah blah. Then you start to like remove all these mistakes, and then you kind of get into this mode where you're making like almost very sterile recordings.
Yep.
And now I'm trying to like break free of that, like that's where I'm like trying to go back to that like inspiration as like a
outside of music
at the beginning.
You want to talk East Asian studies is something that something,
when you're naive, when you're young, you're naive and you're passionate and you like you still remember how much you love those mistakes on those records.
There was 1,000%, and I think that like I studied a lot of Chinese philosophy in college, and something that I always really admired is the I wrote my thesis about a Chinese philosopher named Zhuangzi who speaks a lot about like a 3rd century BCE, Chinese philosopher. And he speaks a lot about unlearning. And I think about that a lot in the arts. And I think in the arts in general, and music in particular, I think about it all the time. It's like, it's something that you hear in common with all masters. Like all masters in really anything, forget just the arts or music, just they all talk about it like they didn't know what they were talking about, then they really knew what they were talking about, and then they went back to basics. It's like everyone talks about that in like every area, and it's really something that like
it's like unlearning music theory.
Yeah, it's right, and it's like, and there is something to be said for like I think you do need a level of technical mastery to be able to unlearn. Yeah, and it's like like I think when it comes to like production engineering, like I'm definitely in the learning phase right now, and I'll get to the unlearning phase later. Yeah, but there's but at the same time, like people who don't know what they're doing have a really beautiful naive view of the world, and when you lose that, I think also what's different about artistry and like production / engineering is like artists in particular, they're not technicians. You know what I'm saying? Like as much theory as you're always trying to make something weird or interesting. I think if you're a sincere artist, like you're drawn, I think, to sincerity. But when it comes to production engineering, it's like you're working for other people, right? So it's like what you're doing is you're the technician in the room. Like your job is to like take off the low end, like so to speak. Like it's your job is like to unmuffle this person and to
But then afterwards you have to figure out, does it suit the music?
Right, exactly. And there's I think that's why it's like the job lends it's a technical job, and it's obviously it is an art form, and there's a tremendous amount of it goes without saying. Like, of course, there's an insane amount of creativity involved in the position. Totally. But I think at its heart, it's like what you're doing, engineering more than production, but both of them are really like you're interpreting something in a technically like beautiful way, and that's different than the arts, I think, and it's why I think the better you get at it, the more you're drawn toward like making these kind of sterile sounding recordings, and it's like so it's not like learning how to breathe life back into it. It's unlearning. It's like getting back to the artist base that I think. Yeah, I think a lot of people. Yeah, most people who are in the engineering production world, I think start in that world.